To start off, we'll do a classic dragon. You can get ideas for how you would build a dragon by looking at living creatures today. I love looking at iguanas and photos of iguanas because it gives you ideas of how the legs might connect. This dragon is perching, kind of like a cat perches on a fence post. I don't know what my dragon is perched on. Maybe it's the top of a mountain. There we go. He's perched on the top of a mountain on a nice cliff in the mountains. And we're going to give him a wing. For the wing, think of a kind of a triangle shape that's rounded at the edges, and then where the webs of the veins on his wings go, kind of like a bat. And there we go. Good idea for a dragon head looking at horses. So if you look closely at horse photos, then you can get some ideas of how to draw dragon heads. And they've got spines down the back, and the other wing, and we've got that nice long tail. All right. When I draw, I do what's called loose pencil work. So I like to give all of my details when I'm doing my final inking stage. So for me, this is good enough for me to figure out what I'm going to do. But for you, you may want to start giving more defined details, like claws on the hand, figure out how the belly is going to look. All those little fancy details. His other clawed hand. Put some little birds out in the sky. Okay, when you get it to a point that you like, then you start inking. I usually like to ink with the hardest part first. So the part that has the most details that I'm likely to mess up on, and that's usually the face. We didn't do a close-up on the face, so there aren't too many details this time. So I've got this dragon's going to have more of a bird style beak, maybe not so many teeth. And we've got that horn. Maybe give him something behind his ear. Give him another horn. Notice I'm turning the paper so it's most comfortable. When you're doing a long line, like the curve on the back, try not to lift up your pen. You want to do long, smooth lines as much as possible. On his wing, nice smooth line. Got a little bit of a claw there. Again, turning the paper so I can get the most comfortable angle for my hand to do those nice, smooth curves. I like to make his wings look like they're a little bit on the old beat up side. There we go. And if you want to carefully figure out where the bone structure would go, you are welcome to. I'm not going to fuss too much about it, since he is a fantasy dragon. There we go. We know that he's got another wing back there. I'll just suggest that he's got that wing. Okay. Again, long, smooth curves. Try not to lift up your pen if you can. And it's got muscle. It's got these big old claws to hang on to the side of the cliff. And he's got those nice arms. And you can debate whether he even needs front arms or not. There are whole threads on the internet as to whether if they've got wings, do they get arms. It's a fantasy creature, so that's totally up to you as to whether they get arms and wings. Double bonus for our dragon. He gets both. And I'll just give the suggestion of a belly. Doesn't have to be too fancy. You can always add details later. And you'll probably be spending a bit more time drawing your creature than I am in these short videos. Okay, I'll give him a spike on the end of his tail. What you might want to do is just do a whole page of drawing spikes at the end of the tail to decide what you like the spike to look like. You might draw a whole page of just wings to practice how you draw wings. I know this because that's what I used to do with my childhood. Read lots of books and draw lots of, well, dragons and dudes on horses with swords. That's my mark of a good movie. Does it have dragons and dudes with horses and swords? Or maybe wizards and stuff like that. Okay. So many of those romance movies out there, they'd be so much better if a dragon just came and ate the guy. Much easier on the whole audience. Okay, we've got our dragon up the top of this cliff. There we go. Got this other cliff off in the distance. It's a scary landscape. And some birds flying. And there we go. Going to quickly erase. Hold my paper down with one hand. Erase all my pencil lines. I don't want to scrub back and forth because that might erase some things that are, or that might destroy the paper. Rip a hole through it. Now you'll notice one of his wings goes off the page up here. In the future, maybe I would be more careful to keep the entire creature on the page, but also don't change the proportions of your creature just because there's an edge of the page. Figure that out in your planning stage, but you don't want to just make the wing a lot smaller. That looks weird. People can tell that you made it small just so that it fit on the page. It's better to just have it go off the page and keep it the right proportion. Now you might think that those wings need to be bigger because in real life they would be having to carry that entire dragon. But since dragons are magical creatures, we're assuming that they also fly using a bit of magic too. So we get around that whole logic train. And And after I erase, there we go, then I noticed, oh, I didn't give him spines. I didn't ink the spines. He doesn't need too many spines, just enough to keep things off of his back. Iguanas have really cool spines down their back, but they don't go the full length of the back. So again, you can get some ideas from drawing up close iguanas and stuff. Okay, I'm going to add a few little details. Let's see, make it look like he's got scales. So instead of covering the whole dragon in scales, I'm just going to draw a couple of little scales every here and there, and people will get the idea. And when you color it, then you can color it with the suggestion of scales. And if this were an up close, then maybe you'd put scars and all sorts of cool things. In my drawings, I have lots of different ways that I've done dragons. So, okay, so I gave the suggestion of scales. Other ways that you can suggest scales is when you're coloring. Usually I color large blunt areas. This time I'm going to use the tip of the pencil and draw some lines. Then I'm going to come back the opposite angle and when I'm done, I've created this kind of checkerboard pattern, which doesn't look like much right now. And we'll do the same here on his legs. But what this does is it gives the suggestion of texture when I come back in and finish coloring him. Okay, now when I come in with my lighter green, then he's got just a little bit texture built in to his scales, so it doesn't look quite so flat. This is a very quick, down and dirty way of coloring. If I was coloring more professionally, then there's a lot of other things I would do. But we just want the suggestion of color. And in the shadows, I'm going to add a little bit of a bluish green because shadows cool down, and there are blues in the shadows. There we go. And his underbelly, let's do a darker orange. Particularly in the shadows, his underbelly. It's going to be a darker orange. And I could be drawing with a bit more detail, but this is good. I've got that back leg over there. I'll use those same oranges and yellows. Elsewhere on our dragon. When you're coloring wings, and like these, I've drawn these suggestions of wrinkles or folds. In this case, I'm going to color in the direction that the wing would fold, and I'm leaving my coloring purposefully streaky. What this does is it gives us a little bit more visual interest without having to go in and add too much detail. So just by coloring streaky here in the wings, people get the idea that, oh, those wings, they fold, they've got little creases, and they've got some other things going on, even though we are doing very quick drawings. Okay, got that up there. Maybe we'll give a little bit of yellow to his horns. And one thing I like to do, I don't want to color the whole sky. I'm just going to put a very faint blue glow around the creature. So you don't have to color the whole picture or the whole sky. People can figure out he's got sky behind him. But it also helps make the picture look a little bit more finished. There we go. So I'm lightly using a blunt pencil to fill in just near him with the blue sky. There we go. And I'm going to give a little bit of definition. Again, this time I can keep it very rough because he's perched on a rocky crag. He's got some shadow under him. Throw some shadow under his belly. So it doesn't take much color at all to quickly suggest that we have this dragon perched on a cliff. In the shadows, I'm going to throw a very dark blue. I like to do this. If you watch my other videos, you'll see that I really like throwing a dark blue in my shadows. It cools down the shadows and it makes it easier to see what's important. So a little bit of contrast goes a long way into making the picture more interesting. So notice how even though his belly was more orangey, by throwing in blue over the top of the orange very lightly, it looks like it was in shadow. There we go. More shadow under his head. Makes his head pop out more. And we'll give a little bit of shadow on that back wing. Maybe a little bit of shadow under that front wing. A bit more shadow under his perch. Pretty happy with that. Then, to make it look like it's a sunny day, I'm going to take yellow, just add a hint of yellow onto the sunny side of life. Come to the sunny side of the mountain. This doesn't look like an angry dragon that will eat you for dinner. He's a happy dragon, just perched on his rock. Okay, there we go. We have our lovely perched dragon. And experiment on your own and have a great time drawing, and we'll see you again sometime later. Thanks for joining us.